Thank you so much for being here, everybody. My name is Lisa A. Romano, the Breakthrough Life Coach. And today we're going to have a webinar on growing up with a narcissistic parent, how that creates emotional neglect, how that chronic invalidation, this sense of I've never felt seen, leads to never feeling good enough, leads to hiding the self, leads to needing validation. You don't even know that you need validation, you're just seeking validation, and how growing up in a home that is littered with deficit, because this type of abuse it's not always easy to spot. When you come from a home where there's neglect, it's about what did not happen. And then we become adults that are unfulfilled. We are adults that are in unhappy marriages. We are adults that have anxiety. We are adults that have bulimia. We have addiction issues. We are adults that are in toxic relationships. And we can't quite understand why, no matter how often we think that we're doing better, we are never really able to find contentment. We're never able to really feel good in our skin. Why does happiness keep escaping us? We read all the books, we watch the YouTube videos, we listen to the podcasts, we go to church, we go to synagogue. We're really trying. We might even be going to Coda. We might even be going to 12-step meetings. We might be doing everything that we think we're supposed to do. We're trying really hard to be empathetic. We're trying really hard to watch the way we speak to people. We're trying really hard not to be judgmental, but still we're frustrated. We are angry. We're stuffing our emotions. And when no one's looking, we're falling apart. We could be running businesses. I can't tell you how many doctors I've coached, how many professional men and women I've coached who go to work every day, take care of their patients, take care of their clients, but behind closed doors, they feel empty. They are afraid to tell the truth. And what adds to their drama and pain is that they've created such a facade. Their kids go to the best schools, or they know that people look at them and the car that they drive and the houses that they live in. And well, what problems can my doctor have? Like, her kids are all doing great. She's driving this great car. She's got this incredible practice. What problems does she have? Well, that doctor may come from a home where she was chronically invalidated and taught that love was tied to how well she could perform. She could have come from a home where she was taught that love was absolutely conditional. It was performance based. She could have grown up in a home that was so toxic. Dad was an alcoholic. Mom was a people pleaser. Mom was emotionally shut down. Mom didn't know how to set a boundary. Mom saw the abuse of the children and just expected the children to like shut up, because if they caused any issues, dad would get worse. So it doesn't really matter what someone looks like. You never know what they're feeling on the inside. And I can tell you, being in my life coaching seat and having, if I consider even my personal training days, we're talking about nearly 3 decades of working with people one-on-one, listening to them talk about what's really going on behind closed doors. And it's so similar. Like, if you come from a home where there was emotional neglect, you are going to be an unhappy adult unless you invest the time into figuring this out. Why? Because your problems from childhood don't go away. They manifest in your adult relationships. Well, how does that happen? Well, as it is below, so shall it be above. What the hell is this wacky life coach talking about? What goes in comes out. When you pour water into a plastic container, you don't get wine when you pour it out. You get milk. I'm sorry. If you pour milk into a plastic container, you're going to get milk when you pour it out, right? It just makes sense. If dysfunction and feeling not good enough goes in, invalidation goes in, no one really cared about you goes in, then you don't know how to care about the self. And so the outside ends up being a mirror for the inside. You learn to shut down as a little girl. You learn to pretend as a little boy. You learn to either fantasize about being rescued or maybe even rescuing. And so that doesn't go away. That manifests. They become our first responders. They become the nurses of the world. They become the therapists and the life coaches of the world. Where Carl Jung talks about the archetype of the wounded healer. They become the firemen and the policemen. I couldn't save my family, but maybe I can save someone else. No one else wanted me to save them, but maybe if I become a police officer or a paramedic or a doctor, an emergency room doctor, maybe then I can help people. Maybe then I can make sense of the chaos. And so it's not uncommon for those of us who have been wounded in childhood take on this role of healer. We become the caretaker. We become the fixer. We are truly wounded healers. The problem is that a wounded healer that has not gone as deep as necessary to heal those wounds can only help someone as far as they've been able to achieve. And so that's why I think it's so, I understand why wounded people go into life coaching. They go into therapy. They go into wanting to be a nurse and wanting to be a doctor. But if you've ever worked with anyone, you for a long period of time, you will notice, at least if I say it, you might say, oh, you know what? Maybe that's what I experienced. It could even be a friend, a well-meaning friend. People can only help you out of your pain to the depths that they've achieved in their own life. That's it. They don't have any answers behind that veil because they haven't gone that far. And we have to be careful because in our ego, in our shadow, we tend to attract people that mirror that shadow, not only in partners, but also in friends. I'm thinking about someone right now that I know personally who is hanging out with somebody who mirrors back her shadow because the friend hasn't achieved next level. And the friend is very happy having this family member that I love, keeping her at that place. Because if my family member ascends, then her friend loses a friend. And so our friends, our therapists, any person that we go to for counsel on any level can only help us to the level that they've been able to transcend within themselves. And I'm of the theory that we all have the potential to heal the self. Now, science is proving that it's pretty predictable that if you come from an alcoholic home or if you come from a narcissistic home, if you come from a home, essentially, to make it really simple, you have unmet, natural, valid narcissistic needs. When you're a little baby, I mean, think about a baby from 0 to 12 months. They are completely dependent upon the adults in their life. I mean, completely dependent. And yes, if you want, okay, so what does that imply? Well, this baby's completely narcissistic. What does that mean? She can't take care of herself. What does that mean? She's relying on the outside. She needs to be the center of her parents' or her caretaker's universe. Absolutely. Otherwise, this poor baby won't survive. Up until 2, now the personality is starting to get formed. So now from 0 to 12, 12 months, I'm a very wise human being. I know when this place is safe and I know when it's unsafe. How does a child know that? By whether or not its needs are met. What needs does a newborn have? Need to be soothed? Need to be cuddled? Are you out there? Are you out there? How many babies are left to cry? It is wrong to let a baby cry. Babies should not be spending any amount of time in fight or flight. Their brains are wiring for fight or flight. This is crazy. I was raised in that era. Let her cry. She's just looking for attention. You're going to spoil her. No, all you did was wire me for not enough. All you did was wire me to distrust people. All you did was teach me that I cannot trust that my needs could be met. All you did was teach me to live in fear. All you did was wire me to live in fear that I was not enough. That's all you did, right? Okay. So now we're smarter. So we are now people who are benefiting from all of these mistakes. If you want to find the information, you can. We know now, due to studies, it sounds so crazy to me that we had to spend millions, if not billions of dollars on studies to prove that you shouldn't let a baby cry. Okay, but whatever, we're here now, right? Stanford University. I mean, it's crazy, right? Now we know you should not let babies cry. Okay, great. Books have been written about it. Amazing. Okay, what about us? What about the adults who were the babies that were harassed for crying? What about us? What about us? What about those of the adults who were shamed for having a need? What about us? The adult children who were made to feel like a burden? What about us? Children who were taught that we were annoying, that we were irrelevant. What about us? There are consequences. And we only have, well, depending on what you believe, but we have one life to live. And it's limited. What about us? Well, when I was going through my recovery, and it was due to complete, utter emotional, mental, and physical, spiritual breakdowns, like I'm not kidding. And my world completely imploded. And I was diagnosed finally after 5 or 6 therapists. Oh, you're codependent. Say what? I don't drink. He doesn't drink. You don't have to drink to be codependent, nor do you have to be married to an alcoholic to be codependent. A little bit of knowledge is a bad thing because you think you know everything. And it was in that moment where my therapist taught me, you don't know nothing, kid. You better learn about codependency, where I was just like, oh my God. And my world was forever changed. And I knew when he said, go read this book, Codependent No More, God Rest Her Soul, Miss Melody Beatty, the queen, the queen, the queen. Take a moment. When I knew in Barnes and Noble, I remember it like it was yesterday. I started reading the first few pages of that book. I slammed it shut and I said, if I continue to read this book, I will never be the same because I'm not going to be able to freaking unsee it. And what I heard in the first few pages of that book was that, yeah, kid, life might suck for you, but it's you. You have to look at you. And I wasn't ready to hear like, well, I'm codependent. Doesn't that mean that something happened to me? Isn't it someone else's fault? Yes and no. Yes, it is someone else's fault that you didn't get what you needed. And yes, you were entitled to this stuff. And no, that's not your fault. But scientifically, psychologically speaking, it could be no other way that you are codependent. Okay, got it. So, but isn't it my ex's? Well, he wasn't my ex then, but isn't it my husband's fault that he's so passive aggressive and he twists stories and he makes things up and he acts like he doesn't know what I'm talking about? Like, isn't he the reason that I'm so angry? Yes and no. Yes, he may have his own issues, but you attracted him. And you've been attracting this type of a person since you started dating at 15. So yes, he's a problem for sure. But no, he's not the only problem. So at the time, I was like, I don't know if I like this message, because it wasn't, you're a victim, you're a victim, you're a victim. It was more like, yes and no, right? But what trumped it and what set my heart ablaze with courage was, it doesn't freaking matter. Because if you don't change, it's going to get worse. And just look at the history. Your mother's codependent. She's going to die codependent. Okay. She's going to die codependent. Your grandmother was an alcoholic. Your other grandmother took her own life. God only knows the history of the women that came before that, but it probably wasn't good. Your father is highly narcissistic. You've been attracting some level of narcissistic men since you're 15. When I realized that at the end of the day, it was irrelevant, not totally irrelevant, but what mattered most was, this is the way it is. This is a natural consequence. It could be no other way. No, it's not your fault, but guess what? You're enough. And you're operating from a blueprint. So when I read Codependent No More and Pia Melody's book, another mentor of mine. She also recently passed away. Take a moment. Giants in the personal development field have moved mountains for women, I think personally, amongst others. When I was reading these books, it was like, okay, it's not my fault. I understand how this happened. But what I wanted to bring to the arena eventually, and I never thought that I'd be bringing it like this, never. I could have never predicted what I've created ever. But I knew in my heart that if I was healing and I was taking these messages, but what I was hearing was it wasn't my fault. It could be no other way. I've always been enough, but my brain doesn't believe that. What I bring to the table is the neuroscience piece. What I bring to the table is the deep, deep psychological knowing that it is really our psyche or this dimension of the self, right? The self is multifaceted, but it's this dimension of self. And neurologically, it's represented way deep in the middle of the brain where self-perception is rooted. That's what's corrupt. And that's not my fault that it's corrupt. And then you piggyback the work of Bruce Lipton, and Bruce Lipton is like, no, like you could have a cancer in your body. It doesn't have to express itself. Okay, well, why does it express itself? So there's triplets. Why does one triplet get cancer and the other two don't get cancer? Well, what's the environment the one triplet is living in? Is she in a toxic marriage, or is he in a toxic marriage? Is he married to a narcissist? Is he married to an alcoholic? Stressful environment. So the gene expresses in the environment. So really, what changes the gene? The environment. What changes a child? The environment. So if you stand back and you look at all the 7 to 8 billion people on the planet, who they become as adults depends on their environment. And it is pattern-like. And that's why I think the 12-week breakthrough method works, because it doesn't matter if you come from Morocco or the Netherlands. If you didn't get what you needed as a child, then you've been systematically corrupted inside the layer of yourself that is rooted in self-perception. And if we could get to that, we change the game. The output changes. When we change the input, we change the output. And I don't know about you, but I find that freaking exciting. And I've committed my life to that. And my life it's a completely different life. I was once a mom. How old was I? 33, 34 years old. I was just talking about this incident with my husband, Anthony. Narcissists play games. They distort reality. And they wear masks for people, right? But when you're in the middle of it, you don't know that's what's going on. You think you're the crazy one because everybody loves this guy, or this woman is nice to everybody else but you. So the narcissist convinces you that you're the reason they're mean to you. And you believe it, especially if you have childhood trauma, especially if you have I'm not enough stuff. You believe that she's nicer to everybody else because I'm the problem. Or he has so many friends on the outside and gets along with everybody because I'm the problem. Well, you don't know yet. You're inside the tornado. But when you get kicked outside the tornado, then you start to see, wow, he treats me differently than he treats Betsy. He treats me differently than he does my mother. This is all a game. This is all a game. And so I want everyone to remember that I was once this torn up, insecure, young mother of 3, literally wedged between the toilet bowl and the shower with her husband, 6'1", 6'2", screaming at her. He didn't pay. He refused to give me money to buy food. He sold our business, so I had no way of making money. He wasn't paying the mortgage. We were 3 months in default. He knew that terrified me because I was saying, I want a divorce. If you're not going to work with me, I have to get out because I'm not mirroring this for our children. I don't know where I'm going to go, but I can't stay here. I cannot, now that I know what I'm doing, it's a freaking pattern and children learn it by observing their parents. I will not continue to do this. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know how I'm going to make it happen, but I'm not freaking staying. And he thought that if he scared me enough, that I would stay. So he stopped paying the mortgage. He wouldn't give me cash. He sold our business. I have no idea what he did with that money. He took control over all our finances. I didn't even know I could walk into the bank. This is my marital property. I would do it today. But I didn't know back then. Lisa, just walk into the bank and claim what's yours. Just take it. You don't need the checkbook to do that. But I was so insecure at the time. And I was so worried that my mother was going to think that I was selfish, that I had some ulterior motive besides wanting to save my children. I mean, that's how narcissistic mothers also get into your head. They twist your own logic. So I used to be that person. I used to be that person that was crouched down between the toilet bowl and the sink. When I tell you my life has completely changed, it has completely changed. But what changed? He didn't change. My ex didn't change. My family never changed. Sadly, I'm not even talking to my sister and my brother right now. We haven't spoken in months, right? They haven't changed. What changed? I changed. Okay. That's a vague term. When you say, Lisa, you changed, what changed? My perception of self changed. Okay. When you say your level of self-perception changed, what do you mean that changed? I changed my freaking neurology. I didn't let the old control me anymore. I broke the habits of anxiety. I broke the habits of seeking approval. I broke the habit of asking for permission to feel what I feel and think what I think. I broke the habit, like Joe Dispenza says, break the habit of being you. Break the habit of being you. This is neurology. And that's what I thought was missing in Codependent No More. And I'm not knocking Codependent No More. It is a classic. Not knocking it. It just, okay, Melody, tell me how to fix this. How do I set this? I know I need boundaries. Tell me how I set the boundary because the anxiety is coming. What do I do with this anxiety? I was the type of person that I needed a step-by-step process because I knew what I was doing wasn't pseudoscience. It was science. It was neuroscience. It was neuropsychology. I knew that. So I needed something that my logical mind could hold on to while the storm freaking raged. And the storm rages. When you say no to a narcissistic family, they are freaking coming for you. They want to destroy you, right? Narcissistic families are coming for the truth teller. They're coming. They're coming. Cycle breakers are crying the tears that their mothers and fathers and grandparents and whatever didn't even know they should have been crying. Cycle breakers stay on track. Cycle breakers carry the burden of breaking generational trauma, and it is brutal. It is hell. That's what cycle breakers do. Now, I didn't know that's what I was doing then. Thank God I didn't know because I might have gotten overwhelmed. All I focused on was I can't keep doing this to my kids. Like now that I see it, I can't unsee it. And so I committed. And the other thing is that even in business, right? You guys probably know this. If you think about the people that you admire the most, the Michael Jordans, right? The J.K. Rowlings of the world. These are people who failed miserably. Right? The author of Harry Potter, her manuscript was rejected over 12 times. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team. What? Michael Jordan? Right. What did they do that was extraordinary? They persisted. You know what makes me different than my brother and my sister, even though they would tell you that, I was the problem? Of course. I persisted. What did I persist in? I stayed in therapy. I kept reading the books. I kept meditating. I kept journaling. I kept telling the truth. I kept holding myself accountable. I kept crying. I sound silly, but I was like, I kept crying. I got more stuff. I gotta keep crying. I just kept crying. I never gave up. If my father said something sarcastic, I didn't let it slip under the rug. If my mother said something sarcastic, was like, I'm done with you, staying home now. You see, you lost access to me, right? I persisted and I persisted and I persisted. Long after the divorce, I did have a false awakening. I thought, well, I'm divorced now. Okay, I'm good. I didn't realize that it wasn't just him, it was me, because I kept attracting sicker and sicker people. And but that's okay. It all served me because, Lisa, what are you missing? What are you missing? I took a very pragmatic Sherlock Holmes approach to my recovery. And I think that's why I was able to build a system that benefits people from all over the world because it's universal. Our wound is universal. And so even though your unique circumstances and how you were traumatized might be different. If you grew up feeling invisible, unheard, and unseen, then you have similar issues to people who are raised in an alcoholic home. Okay, well, maybe mom was an alcoholic. Okay, no problem. Maybe you grew up in a home where there was like no effort. Like no one said hello to you. No one asked you about your day, right? My daughter went to a bachelorette party the other night and they were talking about Anthony as a dad. No, so Anthony was like maybe a little too crazy. But anyway, he was like on his daughters when they were growing up. But the other daughter's experience was, I was so grateful that I had a parent who cared, because Anthony was like looking out for this entire group of kids. Right. So the kids that had parents that didn't give a crap where they were, one parent said, just don't die. So that was the parenting. Just don't die when you go out. Just don't die. Don't care who you're hanging out with, what time you're coming home. Did you eat today? How you doing in school? Do you have everything you need to do well in school? Do you need any help with your homework? What clothes do you need? Like, what's going on? How do you feel? None of that, which is emotional neglect. Just don't die. So you could have grown up in that type of a home. Maybe there was no abuse, but did you feel unseen? Okay, maybe mom and dad, how you doing? But maybe your siblings were abusive. Maybe you were abused by your sibling and no one cared. Maybe you were bullied in school and no one cared. Maybe you were failing in school. Maybe you had a learning issue. The idea is that whether you came from an alcoholic home or a narcissistic home or an emotionally neglectful home, science is proving that your brain is very similar across the board. Well, then that means that healing and recovery, if it helps an adult child of an alcoholic, chances are it's going to help an adult child of emotional neglect. Yeah. So that's what we've created in the 12-week breakthrough method. So growing up with, now I'm going to get to the presentation. Growing up with the narcissistic parent deeply impacts a child's developing psyche, shaping how they relate to themselves and others. Now, remember, how your parents treat you is shaping you for self-worth, is shaping you, and you shaping like a ball of clay, the person that you're going to be in the world. And that happens through your 5 senses. When we get after the 12-week breakthrough method, there's the 8-week masterclass in Soul School. By the time if you decide to journey with me through all these 3 classes, which makes up the Conscious Healing Academy, by the time you get to Soul School, you're realizing that you're not your programming and you're not your ego and you're not your 5 senses. And then we move you into who you truly are, which is an innate extension of source, if you believe that. So, but we can't get you there until we get you to a point where you recognize that none of this is your fault. How do we help you correct your subconscious programming? How do we help you create new habits? And how do we do it in a systematic way that really respects the neurological aspect of this journey? So narcissistic parents tend to see their children as extensions of themselves rather than separate beings, which distorts the child's sense of self. You are not allowed to have a feeling that's separate from a narcissistic parent. And woe to the truth teller or the child that says, you were not home. You did not make sure that I was fed. You dragged me around from boyfriend to boyfriend. You drank in front of me. You left me to take care of my siblings. You abused me. Woe to the truth teller that dares to hit the narcissistic mother or father with a dose of reality, because that narcissistic parent is going to poo-poo all over your reality, distort reality, and want to pull the card on you so that you think that there's something wrong with your version of reality. And you don't know, below the veil of consciousness, you have an attachment to this person, because biologically and neurologically, physiologically, literally, psychologically, you are wired to attach to the person who is abusing you. And you don't know that. But as you gain awareness around it, then you're able to dissect yourself from this very sick dynamic, because a narcissistic parent is parasitic. Think about a tick. So a tick latches onto a host and it just sucking the blood out of the scapegoat child or a partner. And now the child has to extricate themselves from this narcissistic parasitic relationship. But the narcissistic parent doesn't want that to happen. So they cling and they dig their claws in deeper, sometimes with insults, sometimes with love bombing, sometimes with faking that they're sick or faking that they're hearing you, anything to not allow you to escape. So that's why understanding what's really going on is so helpful, because you could predict what's going to happen next when you start to escape a narcissistic family. So this dynamic lays the groundwork for codependency, a subconscious survival adaptation. So it's just codependency is an adaptation rooted in the fear of rejection and abandonment. So here are 5 core consequences, and there are many, but we're just going to talk about 5 so they don't overload you, of growing up with a narcissistic parent and how it leads to codependency. And it always amazes me. I probably get, I don't know, a couple of emails a week from people who are like, I'm 67 years old and I never knew I was codependent. I've been in therapy for 30 years. Every time I tried to talk about my mother, the therapist like turned the tide. I wasn't allowed to talk about my mom. I wasn't allowed to talk about my dad. It was all about me dealing with my feelings, right? But when that happens, you're not dealing with your real feelings. You're dealing with some distorted version of your feelings. You're being taught that your feelings aren't acceptable. And that chronic invalidation is going to lead to future problems. Nothing gets resolved. So, number 1, enmeshment and a lack of boundaries. Now, enmeshment is sick. Enmeshment, and you're not going to always see it. And sometimes it's not what you think it is. So you see a mom and her children, and they're really close and they always do everything together. Doesn't mean they're enmeshed. That mom and those children could have really good boundaries. Enmeshment could exist between a mom that lives in Jersey and a son that lives in London. Mom calls the son and doesn't allow the son to have any autonomous emotion. Or mom is judging every aspect of the son's life, stalking him on Facebook, ridiculing him, making him feel guilty, questioning his judgment in women. So that could be enmeshment. So enmeshment doesn't have to do with space. So enmeshment is the psychological roller coaster that we're on, more like a Ferris wheel, in which an adult child is subconsciously worried about upsetting mom. And so let's say you have a daughter who is having a conversation with a narcissistic mother, and they're enmeshed. The daughter doesn't know it. Below the veil of consciousness, the daughter just knows, I better keep her happy. So when mom says, that's mom, and the daughter's like, oh, but mom, like you abandoned me when I was 6. Like I told you, my stepfather abused me and you sent me off to go live with Aunt Mary. And what does the narcissistic mother say? The narcissistic mother comes down on that child. That's not true. You're a liar. You wanted to go live with Aunt Mary. And you know what? You shouldn't say those things about Tom. That's enmeshment. Now this little girl, well, she could be 50, 60 years old. The daughter goes right into the enmeshment, the fear of confronting mom, and she doesn't even realize it. So enmeshment is not what a lot of people think it is. It's invisible, it's emotional, and it has nothing to do with space. So the consequence is a narcissistic parent often violates the child's emotional and physical boundaries. The child is not allowed to have their own needs, preferences, or identity. The child of a narcissistic parent is not allowed to have their own autonomous perception of their childhood. They're not. The child who grows up with a narcissistic parent has been programmed, Pavlovian conditioning, to know that they have to lie to CPS. They have to lie to the teacher. And the child only wants to please their mother, only wants to please their father. So there's a lack of boundaries and there's enmeshment. So later in life, the adult child now struggles to set boundaries. The adult child fears rejection, or they feel guilty if they say no. Another consequence is they attract their mother. They attract unhealthy partners who expect and demand unrealistic loyalty at the expense of themselves. So a narcissistic partner is going to expect you to choose them over yourself. So let's think about sexually. Narcissistic partners are they don't mind pushing the sexual limits of their partners, and they judge them and they guilt them. So if you came from a narcissistic parent, it's going to be really hard for you to hold on to your boundary, because below the veil, you want to please your partner because they represent your parent. So that's the codependency link. The child learns that love is conditional and dependent on their ability to suppress their true self to caretakers. Later in life, they struggle to set boundaries, and they will have a very difficult time saying no. They will ruminate. Am I right? Am I wrong? Do I have a right to feel this way? You're always worried when you're a codependent. Number 2, emotional neglect or invalidation. A narcissistic parent dismisses, mocks, or punishes a child's feelings, especially if those feelings mirror back inadequacy or judgment of the parent. You can only mirror back validation and approval to a narcissistic parent. The child learns to distrust their inner world. The child will think they're crazy because their emotional experiences are not acknowledged or validated. And in fact, they're invalidated. That never happened. You're just looking for attention. You know, you wanted that to happen. You were flirting with him. That's why that happened. You know what? He really didn't hurt you that bad. You know, you have a very vivid imagination. So now the child doubts their reality. So now when they're as an adult, they don't have a strong sense of self. So when you're thinking about what they're magnetized for, they're magnetized for this type of abuse, and they don't even know it. And what do they attract? This type of abuse. And then they stay on the loop. Like, I just talked to my son this morning who was abused by, I don't know, sociopath for sure, narcissistic sociopath. And my heart broke for him because he said, Mom, I remember being in the middle of it and I was questioning reality. I was like, am I real? Is she real? He's like, there was just no semblance of reality. Like, I thought one thing was real and she just kept moving the needle. And she said, that never happened. You wanted this. That's why this is going on. He's like, and none of it was true. And I said, well, that's the gaslighting. You know, you were so psychologically abused that you had so much cognitive dissonance. He got depressed. He gained a lot of weight. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. He was able to see it. And thank goodness, he found the courage to tell me what was going on, and he let me in, and we got an attorney, and she had to leave the apartment right before lockdown hit, because that would have been truly, truly devastating. But this happens in my life too, right? Like, it's like, and I think what I've had to struggle with, and you will too, if you're a parent, is that I thought that by getting divorced and doing everything that I've done, my children would not suffer the consequences of their development. Wrong. My son walked right into the mouth of a narcissistic relationship. And thank goodness, however, and what saved me was, but he had the tools to get out. And so that's my encouragement for you. If you're worried, like, oh my God, you know, I'm codependent, or I have all this trauma that I never dealt with, and I know my kids have been affected, like, that is true. We have to accept that reality. They have been affected, but dear one, it could be no other way. So then it's like, well, what do I do now? I hope that you take the persistent path. I hope that you take the warrior's path, and you don't give up. You represent, you heal yourself. And now you're turning the ship. And now when your children start going through their stuff, at least you have tools now. At least you have the language. You know, if you don't get well, you don't develop the language, you're not going to be able to help them out of this quicksand. That to me is like the worst. So you're codependent. Now your son's married. He's married to a narcissist. He's got a couple of kids, and you don't know how to help him, right? You don't have the language. You don't have the tools. You don't have the wisdom or the knowledge. That's really rough, but it doesn't have to be that way. So when a child comes from emotional neglect and is constantly invalidated, they learn to distrust their inner world because their emotional experiences were never validated. And in fact, they were invalidated. So the link to codependency is this: as that child grows up into an adult, they will prioritize others' needs over their own. They will disconnect from their emotions and constantly seek external approval to feel secure. They're going to attract what they know. 3, chronic guilt and over-responsibility. If you came from a narcissistic home where your needs were not met, then you might struggle with chronic guilt and over-responsibility. Everything's your fault. Like your husband walks in the door, you did something. Your daughter is a little standoffish, is something you did. Like the lady at the grocery store is usually very friendly. Today she's not, you did something. Everything is your fault, right? That goes back to a trauma response. It's also an ego defense mechanism. And I think it's very protective because if I think I did it, then on some level, I think I can control it. You see the safety? That's like a safety valve. It's almost like, think about, source has allowed our psyche as children, equipped us with this. Well, if it's my fault, then I can fix it, right? It's a cognitive distortion, right? That runs our life until we work it through. However, it's almost like a pressure valve. So if it's my fault, then I can fantasize about fixing it. Right. What's the benefit? Well, if I'm fantasizing about fixing it, then I'm not feeling it. Right. What's the benefit of that? I get a little vacation from the stress, right? So I get out of the parasympathetic, I get out of the sympathetic nervous system, I go into the parasympathetic nervous system through fantasy, through escapism. So there is a benefit to feeling responsible when you're a child. Unfortunately, as an adult, it becomes like an OCD type of thing. And now I'm a chronic fixer. Now I have chronic anxiety. Now, if I don't have a problem to fix, I don't know what the hell to do with myself. Like, you ever notice that anxiety hits you when things are calm? Right. That's a symptom. So number 3 is the chronic guilt and over responsibility. So narcissistic parents often blame the child for their own emotional states or problems. The child becomes the scapegoat or the emotional caretaker. So everything is the child's fault. Now, the link to codependency is this. As a child, remember your developing psyche, you're trying to make sense of the world. The child internalizes a distorted sense of responsibility for other people's moods and lives, developing a compulsion to fix others to avoid feeling unworthy or ashamed. That's me. Hello, right? That's me. Like, was me. So if there was a problem to fix, I interjected. I wanted to fix it. I volunteered. I should have just shut my freaking mouth. That's how I attracted takers. And I didn't realize that I had this compulsion to fix. I didn't feel good enough. No one tried to fix me, by the way, as a kid. It was like, hello, here I am. Hello, drowning. Hello. Well, figure it out, kid, But I developed this intense need to fix people. If I was fixing you, maybe you'd find worth in me. That's how you attract takers. And that's how you get depression. That's how you get sick physically. That's how you miss out on opportunities to like be your true self. You can't make the money that you want to make if you're not being your true self. You can't attract the friends that you want to attract that are and have these mutual satisfying relationships if you can't tell the truth, if you can't be your true self. If you're focusing on fixing other people, you're not shining. You're not shining your light. You're not shining your light. And so, you have an opportunity in life to be your own light and to let it shine. And everybody has an innate gift. And it's crazy to me that what comes the most natural for you is your gift. It's your gift. The one thing that you don't have to go to school for, that's your gift. And even if you went to school for it, let's say you're a painter, and so you took some classes or whatever, you got a Bachelor of Arts in Fine Art, whatever. Did that always come easy to you as a kid? Then that's your path. That's your path. I've always wanted to help people. That always came easy. I always wanted to write. That always came easy, right? And I wanted to connect with people. This is what comes easy for me. But no, I'm going to become a nurse. That never came easy for me. Like, I was always sick. Couldn't do it. I went to computer science. Like, what am I doing? Like, that didn't come easy for me. So truly, truly healing from codependency was like me coming back to my true self and me finding value in my true self. And instead of fixing everybody else, I decided to fix myself. And that's when your light will shine. So number 4 is the fear of rejection. You don't even know that you fear rejection. You don't even know that you fear abandonment. So the consequence of being raised by a narcissistic parent is that love is made contingent on performance or compliance. A little child knows, oh my God, it's just, once you see it, you can't unsee it. You ever watch little kids look up at their mothers and fathers and they're on the phone? Or you watch, if you study little children enough, you'll see that there are those children that look at their mother and look at their father, like they're so afraid of coloring outside the line. And then you just have these wonderful little butterflies that are just like ravaging through the playground. And they're like, like they're just on it. They're just tearing up the playground. They're just having fun. They're just playing. Like they don't have big brother like staring at them. My mother and father used to brag that, oh, I could take my kids anywhere. They were like soldiers, and I look at my dad. I used to look at my dad. He's passed now, but I would like, what is wrong with you, dude? You're so proud of the fact that you had terrified little children that had to suppress their need for fun because we were so afraid that we'd get hit with the belt or we would be terrorized verbally or you would not love us. Like you're proud of that. And he went to his grave proud of that. And it's just mind boggling that someone could be proud that they stole a childhood from their child, or they think that that's the answer to rearing a child. And there's a bunch of us in life, that have to deal with the consequences of being raised by those people. I'm just grateful. I focus on, okay, what do I do now? That's what I focus on. And it works because if I can help an adult child who has a child, then I'm helping 2, 3 generations in. And that's the best that we can do with what we've got. So I think that that's essential. So the child learns that love can be withdrawn at any moment, especially if they defy or displease the parent. My little granddaughter, and I think my daughter's doing an excellent job raising her, as is my son-in-law. So grateful for these men. They're just incredible, incredible men. And because we have 5 daughters and they're all fantastic. And my son is just fantastic. And the little one still says to my daughter, Mommy, are you sad? And my daughter's like, I don't want her trying to take care of my feelings. And I said, that's just how attuned a child is to you. Right. So children learn, they come predisposed to like worry about mommy and daddy's feelings. And if mommy and daddy abuse that in a child, oh, I'm mad because you didn't do that. You didn't eat your string beans. People say that. So now I'm going to eat string beans, right, that I hate until I almost throw up. And now I'm going to have an eating disorder because if I don't eat, mommy's going to get sad and cry. So I better keep eating. And this all becomes twisted. It becomes associations at a neurological level, at a subconscious level. The good news is that we can work this out. But love is tied to this idea that love can be withdrawn at any moment. Now, the codependency manifests in the adult child because the child learns to become hypervigilant, people-pleasing, and approval-seeking in adulthood. They often stay in toxic relationships out of fear of being alone or unloved because they've been raised by a narcissistic parent. Now, number 5 is a distorted sense of self. You don't see yourself as you truly are. So the child is rarely mirrored for who they truly are. Like if you have a narcissistic parent, you're not getting, I love you, you're good enough. What do you need? When you're crying, a parent is supposed to notice. Your emotions are supposed to notice. You're supposed to have a big hug waiting for you if things are going rough for you. And if you're having big feelings, someone's supposed to be able to stand there and mirror like, wow, you sound like you're having big feelings. You're not supposed to be judged and hit and beaten or criticized because you have big feelings, right? So we're groomed then to become what the parent needs, a trophy, a servant, or an invisible burden. So we're learning by the way that our parents are treating us, how we're supposed to show up in the world. Now, the link to codependency is this. The child grows up unsure of who they really are, because if you don't allow a child to express their feelings, then how does that child become, a 35-year-old adult who says, I like this and I don't like that? I like to date this type of a woman, but I don't like to date that type of woman. I like these characteristics, but I don't like those characteristics. You can't because you've been cut off from what you truly think and feel from your authentic self. You had to make a choice between authenticity and connection or attachment. And unfortunately, authenticity gets shoved out the window. If you're codependent, you struggle with authenticity. I heard someone, a profiler say, ask someone how authentic they are. And if they say, oh, I'm truly authentic. So the reality is that if you can think that you're being authentic and not really be authentic. And if you're codependent, then you're not authentic. Hear what I'm saying? It's not your fault because you've been raised to think that you need to be something other than what you are to please people. So the child grows up unsure of who they are. They define their worth based on others' perceptions and may struggle to make decisions or feel worthy unless they are serving someone else. I've literally not that long ago coached a very, very influential person. She was actually an actress, and she admitted that without her husband's approval, she doesn't feel like she's good enough. So even though she's, gotten so many accolades, so many awards, without her husband's saying, yes, you did good, or no, you didn't do good, or you should do this, she has no self-worth, and she's working through that. So even someone who by public standards, like this woman should be so confident. No, it's all a mask. It's all a mask. So codependency means that you've cut off your authentic self. The good news is that the 12-week breakthrough method allows you to connect to yourself. You get back in touch with who you really are. And by the end of 90 days, you're living a more authentic life. You're not finished after the 90 days. You have to repeat this, I would say, at least 3 times the first year, and then hopefully move on to the 8-week class and then soul school. But it is a method that helps you anchor to the self, brings you back home. What am I supposed to say? What am I supposed to feel? What do I think in this moment? What is the process for this? Which helped me, and it's helped thousands of people. So codependency, dear one, is not a character flaw. Okay. I always get a little like ticked off when I hear like codependency being the word being thrown around like it's a flaw. It's a survival strategy is what it is, right? So, if I shut down and I run away, or if I have a panic attack due to trauma, there's all the sympathy in the world, right? Like, oh well, look how she grew up, right? But if I'm codependent and I'm able to, at least on the surface, keep it together, but I'm seeking approval, I'm an imploding bulimic on the inside, but my house is really taken care of, and my husband's taken care of, but I'm anxious, like that's a character flaw. No, it's just manifested differently. It's still a response to trauma. So we have to remove the stigma and understand what codependency really is. It's a learned survival strategy. It's rooted in trauma and emotional abandonment. I'm not saying you're like you're like Snow White and Cinderella because you're a codependent and you have no responsibility. Codependence can be nasty, right? Like if I take care of you and you don't take care of me, you don't read my mind. I don't even know what I want. I just expect you to like, let me focus on you because I have control on that, and let me like read you really well and fulfill all your needs. So you have nothing to complain about from me. So that when you do complain about me, I'm like on top of you. I'm like on you, like white is on rice. Like that's not nice as a codependent. That's not nice. So, or manipulating a sense of self and identity out of another person. That is right. But we have to work through it. Codependents are immature. But we don't have the tools to grow up. We were arrested in an earliest stage of emotional development. That is not our fault. So we have to go back. We have to make the past real. And we have to be wise enough and mature enough to say, I don't know what I don't know. And if what I'm saying resonates with you, if you're feeling it in your gut, that's a sign. I mean, that was always my sign. Like when I listened to someone, it was like, oh, it was a feeling. It wasn't the thinking. The thinking told me, no, not now. The thinking told me, oh, I'll figure it out later. The thinking told me, I don't have enough time to do this now. My thinking mind always like later, 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 later. But my gut always told me now. This is true now. So see if you're feeling that as I'm talking, because that's a sign. So when a child must abandon themselves to remain attached to a narcissistic parent, the nervous system adapts by wiring itself around external validation, hypervigilance, and self-neglect. Healing requires reclaiming the self, building boundaries, validating our emotions, and unlearning the belief that love must be earned through self-sacrifice. So I teach you that love is a given. Love is a given. So that's our starting point. The first lesson is called When the Divine Connection Goes Awry. We start there. We help you understand, oh, I was born enough. You were born enough. So what's wrong is not me. It's the way I think. Yes. And thinking is a product of what you've experienced on the outside. You were a baby. You couldn't control the input. Dear one, you're going to input for 90 days and you're only going to hear the information you should have heard then. And we're going to control the inner narrative. And that's, you're going to start to feel changes first. You're going to start to feel changes. Then in time, you're going to notice that your speaking starts to change about yourself and then to others. And then your behavior is going to change. So this is the process of transformation. So healing from narcissistic abuse is not like healing a surface level wound. It requires going inward and facing layers of emotional denial, confusion, and subconscious programming that all began in childhood. Many adult children of narcissistic parents don't even realize they were abused because the abuse was often emotional, subtle, and woven into the fabric of what they were told was love. Don't tell the police officer the truth. When a teacher asks you where you got that bruise, don't tell them. Tell them you fell down. Tell them you fell down, and then I'll take you for ice cream. But I'm telling you, if you tell the teacher where that bruise came from, no ice cream. And I'm not going to talk to you. I don't even want to look at you when you come home. That's narcissistic abuse, right? So, but what is the child being taught? Deny the self, deny the truth. So, this makes the healing process uniquely challenging because we have to come out of that denial. We have to start telling the truth, and that's painful. And that's why I think a supportive community is really helpful. People who are going through what you're going through, you don't feel so alone. And the live version of the 12-week breakthrough method offers the live community. The on-demand doesn't have a live community, but there is a members only forum. And we get back to within 24 to 48 hours. But knowing that you're part of a community, like, oh, wow, other people have their own stories and it's so similar. I'm not alone. Super, super healing. And studies actually prove that. So here are 3 key reasons why healing from narcissistic abuse is so difficult for adult children. So if you think, oh, I have a narcissistic mother and I know my dad's an alcoholic, like, why am I still stuck? Here's why. So number 1, you were taught to deny reality. You are not living in reality. You're living in their version of reality. When you grow up with a narcissistic parent, you're often gaslit into believing your feelings, thoughts, and perceptions are wrong or invalid. Over time, you learn to distrust your inner voice. To survive, you begin to deny your reality and with it, your emotions. So, and like I said, I feel like my transformation I know it was only possible because I got in touch with my true feelings. And that was a lot because I was always taught that I was too much. I was taught that I was crazy. I was taught that no one would listen to me. Like, who do you think you are? Like that type of narrative. You're just looking for attention. I was looking for validation because validation is actually required in a healthy relationship. I'm supposed to feel seen by my family members. Hello, I'm invisible. Can we talk? Can you see me? Can you hear me? When you come from a toxic home, you're crazy for wanting to like clear the air. And that you're wrong for like wanting to talk about what Uncle Mickey said to you at the dinner that was so abusive that everybody ignored. Like, you're the crazy person, right? So if you don't break through that, then you become part of that crazy system. So it's denial. And then when you look at your brother and your sister and the other family members, like everybody's drinking the same Kool-Aid, like you start to think it's you. Right. So this is not easy to do. It's not. And then when you start to do it, if you don't do it with the system, in my opinion, when you start to feel the emotions, like I shouldn't be thinking this about my family. Right. I think I'm drawn to like Tony Soprano in like season 1, where he was talking to the therapist, and the therapist is like, so tell me about your mother, from Staten Island. Tell me about your mother. And he didn't want to talk about his mother. How dare you want to talk about my mother? She's my mother. There's so much denial when it comes to like talking about your family. But if you are an adult child, if you do have codependency, if you did grow up with alcoholic or narcissistic abuse, talking about it is healing. It's cathartic. And it's not about blaming anybody so much. It's not about blaming people so much as it is about understanding the consequences to your developing psyche and your perception of self, your lack of self-worth, and your lack of true identity, your distortions, your fear of telling the truth. We're just trying to gather information. So why this blocks healing is that you can't name your truth. You can't feel your feelings. And if you can't feel your feelings, you can't process or release them. This keeps you stuck in survival mode, operating from the same childhood patterns and strategies that helped you avoid pain, but now limit your growth and self connection. So here's number two, why it's so hard to heal: telling the truth. And again, I go back to Tony Soprano. It feels like betrayal. Narcissistic family systems revolve around loyalty to the dysfunction. Speaking up, setting boundaries, or simply acknowledging that something was off, can feel like you're betraying the family, even if you're finally honoring yourself. So, this is why it blocks healing. This internal conflict triggers shame and guilt, which are powerful tools used by narcissistic parents to control your silence. That guilt activates, you don't even know this, it happens at the subconscious level, activates the survival response, causing you to freeze, fawn, or shut down rather than confront painful truths. You might retreat into silence or self blame just to stay loyal to the denial. The third thing is the fear of rejection feels like death. As children, we needed our caregivers for emotional and physical survival. When those caregivers were narcissistic, love was conditional. Any sign of individuality, anger, or emotional neediness was met with withdrawal, punishment, or rejection. So you weren't allowed to go up against your mother. My little granddaughter says to my son-in-law, "I'm so mad at you, Daddy. I hate you." And he's like, "That's okay." There's no narcissistic injury happening within my son-in-law. He's like, "That's okay." Right? What does that tell the 3-year-old? Like, you're allowed to be mad at Daddy. You're allowed to have these feelings. It's just absolutely beautiful. You know, oh my God, I can't even imagine telling my mother I'm mad at you. Like, what would have happened if I told my mother at 3 or 4 or 5 that I was mad at her? Forget it. Off with your head. Anyway, this is why it blocks healing. Even as adults, our nervous system are still wired to equate rejection with abandonment and abandonment with death. So when we start to speak our truth or set a boundary, our subconscious mind might panic. It happens all below the veil, dear one. Believing we are in danger, we may sabotage our progress just to avoid re-experiencing that childhood terror. That's why I think like the 12-week breakthrough method, at least for me, it was like, okay, I was like, bing, I could chart my goal. And so when I was having like the fear coming up about confronting this or feeling that, it was like, but that's the goal. The process and the system allowed me to stick with it. So I understood my why. And if a human being understands a why, they can go through the pain. I'm thinking about Viktor Frankl's book, A Man's Search for Meaning, the Holocaust survivor. Like he eloquently lays it out in this book that the Holocaust survivors, he feels as a psychiatrist, the men in the concentration camp that had a why, they wanted to get home to their family. And those were the men that he feels were able to survive this enormous, ridiculous pain. That they began to see beauty in the sunrise and the sunset. So they had a why to keep going. It's the same thing with healing from childhood trauma. If you have a clear why, my why was my children. I'm breaking this freaking cycle. And then once I was like, okay, broke it for them, it was like then another why, bigger why, whatever. I just had more and more whys. Like, well, now I want to help other people. And then it was like, okay, now I'm helping other people. It's like, well, you know what? I want to help myself more, and okay, start writing. Okay, helping other people, writing, whatever, business. Okay. Well, now I want a healthy relationship. So it's just the whys just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it is a system that you follow. And we offer you that in the 12-week breakthrough method. So healing from narcissistic abuse requires deep compassion. It requires self-awareness and a willingness to break the trance of childhood conditioning, which we will help you do. It takes time to reconnect with your inner truth and rewire your brain to feel safe in your own reality, but it is possible and you are worth it. So now before looks like I have one question in the Q&A. You're free to ask me a couple of questions if you like about the breakthrough method. But before we start talking about the breakthrough method, I would like to offer you an acronym, and that acronym is BRAVE. So the acronym BRAVE, because respecting all values empowers. This acronym is designed to remind you that setting boundaries is an act of courage and self-respect, not selfishness. Even though a narcissistic person is going to see your boundary as a threat, okay, because it activates their narcissistic injury. You don't say no to me. You don't say no to me. You let me control you. What's the matter with you? You didn't read the memo this morning? So what BRAVE stands for is this: B, breathe. When you start to feel anxious about setting a boundary, pause, take a deep breath to calm the nervous system. Only a calm mind can take a deep breath. And so if anything has saved me, like in a pinch, it's like, it just resets the nervous system. It's a signal to get out of the sympathetic nervous system. So just B is breathe. R, recognize. Notice the discomfort in your body and ask yourself, am I about to violate my boundary? Is this people pleasing? Is it people pleasing driving my choice? Am I seeking validation here? Like, just breathe, you pause, and then you recognize that you're feeling anxiety. Maybe you're talking to a narcissistic person and you routinely just agree with them, but you want to start breaking that pattern. Or you have a narcissistic mother who likes to talk about herself in a grandiose way that is completely BS. And you're like, you don't want to mirror back this distorted reality anymore. You want to start standing in your own reality. So this would be the moment that you recognize the anxiety that's coming up in you and just ask yourself, like, am I about to people please? Am I about to seek validation? Am I disowning myself right now? The A stands for ask. What do I need right now to feel safe and respected? So ask yourself these questions like, do I need to end the conversation right now? Do I need to like respect myself right now? Just you're becoming metacognitive. So BRAVE is an acronym that's actually activating metacognition. V stands for validate. Affirm your right to feel, need, and choose a new action, a new energy, a new way of relating to people in your life. Right. So I remember when the first time that I put BRAVE into action, I didn't know I was doing it at the time, but I had therapy that day. And my therapist said, the next time someone says something to you that's like really fresh, like, don't let it slither under the rug. Like, just ask yourself how it makes you feel. So that day, my mother said something really sarcastic to me. It was my birthday. And I made the mistake. God forbid I say that I'm tired, right? Like, oh, she's got to jump all over me. I said, oh, I'm so tired. I was in the middle of going through my separation at the time, right? Like with 3 little kids, like it was just hell. And she looked down at me and she said, I don't know what the hell you're so tired for. You didn't lift a freaking finger the whole time you were here. So I didn't defend myself. You know, I just shut up. I did shutty. And I looked down and I asked, like, Lisa, how did that make you feel? And the tears just came. And I pushed myself away from her beautiful mahogany table. And I went in the back room. I called my kids. They put I zip up the jacket. And my little one's like, Mom, are you crying? I was like, yep. Telling the truth, being brave, telling the truth, telling the truth, telling the truth. Why are you crying? Didn't cover for her. I told the truth again because I want my children to tell the truth. Grandma's mean to me. And I'm not staying here. Grandma hurt my feelings. She's not going to say she's sorry. So we're leaving. This was brave. This was actually brave. So in that moment, after I asked myself how I felt and how do I respect myself, to me, it was stand up for myself and leave. And that's exactly what I did. So E would be express. So communicate your boundary with clarity and calm confidence. And I did when my mom came to the back room. Now, don't forget, she's used to being my bully. So at this time, I'm like in my 30s, right? And she still thinks she can bully me. Hell to the no. New sheriff in town. Like, that woman didn't know what the hell, what transformation her daughter was going through. But I just pointed my finger in her face. I call it the OK Corral moment. I said, if a daughter ever needed her mother, it was now. I said, move. And I always think back to the Bible phrase, say to the mountain, move, and it shall move. And she moved. The beginning, there is the word. My words were changing. The words I was speaking to myself were changing. I was talking to a therapist that knew what the hell he was talking about. I was reading Codependent and More, and I was reading about boundaries. I was reading Love Addiction by Pete Melody. I was reading all of these incredible books. So the words were changing. In the beginning, there is the word. So my words were changing. And I was able to speak and express it. So that's the acronym BRAVE. Now, if you practice this, I promise you that you're going to get better and better at it. Now, just before I answer any questions in the Q&A, I just want to go over just a few briefly. What is the 12-week breakthrough coaching program? The 12-week class is a 90-day healing system. It's broken down into 3 modules. The first 4 weeks, the awakening module, where I teach you through video training. I help heal, or you help heal yourself through guided theta brainwave retraining meditations. Very important that we control the inner narrative. You also get neuroscience-backed, self-reflective journaling prompts. Every word has been carefully chosen to activate metacognition to help make the past real so that you can come out of denial. You also get homework. This is experiential homework. Why? Because studies prove that when your whole body is involved in a healing exercise, your entire brain, mind, body, and soul is activated. So this helps increase your healing at the subconscious level and the neurological level. That's why talk therapy, 45 minutes. Your time's up, time's up. You got to go. That's not enough. That's not enough for me. Okay. It's not enough. And, even talking to other people that aren't actually breaking through it might keep me stuck. And studies also prove that talking about what happened to you makes your brain worse. So this is a system that is very, very different. In my opinion, it's groundbreaking. And I don't just say that. Independent people say that, like Robin Bryman, the psychologist. She has a PhD. She said her patients do exceptionally well and better when they take this program and they work with her. Thank you very much, Miss Psychologist, PhD. A neuroscience took the program, said it's groundbreaking. Lisa, the way that you've laid this out, it's changing people's brains. I also had a second neuroscientist come in and say, I really want to scan people's brains before they take your class, 90 days after they take the class, and a year after they've taken it 3 times. I'm all for it. I'm all for it. So there's something happening at a brain level with this process. If you get your first lesson, you go into your dashboard, you follow the instructions, you watch the video, you get introduced to the awakening module, you do the meditation, you download the journaling prompts, you start working on your journaling prompts, you download the homework, you print out the homework, you print out the journaling prompts, and you do a little bit of the homework that day. This is the process you follow. Part of the live group is that you're getting exclusive access to other healing resources. First of all, I'm a member of that group, and my life coaches are a member of that group. So we're responding daily. Okay, so if you're in Hawaii or you're in Australia, you're up when I'm sleeping. But within 24 hours, your post is going to get responded to. I'd say it like it is, dear ones. I'm not going to flow make it all fluff and stuff. I'm going to tell you like it is. But you're going to get access to an exclusive Facebook group. Now, every Saturday morning at 9 a.m., I go live inside of Facebook. We're also going to add 3 live Zoom calls. We'll get to see everybody on Zoom. So I'm going to do a live group call on Zoom 3 times. It's going to be on a Thursday night at 6 o'clock. It's going to be on a Thursday night after each module finishes. So it's like a module recap. Great. You're also going to get 1-year complimentary access to my Breakthrough Warrior membership site. So now that is, again, another exclusive community. Every first of the month, I just released a mini course this morning. So you get a mini course, you get access to so many of my paid programs inside the membership. You're going to get that for free. So the first module is the awakening module. The second module is the accountability module. And the third module is the ascension module. So it's a systematic approach to retraining your brain. A brain retraining program like the 12-week breakthrough method is powerful because it targets the root causes of codependency. Subconscious beliefs formed in childhood that govern behavior, perception, and emotional responses in adulthood. And here's why this approach works. It's neuroscience-backed rewiring. So codependency isn't just a pattern, it's a neural loop. The 12-week breakthrough method helps interrupt those loops by teaching students to become conscious of old survival strategies like people-pleasing, self-abandonment, and emotional reliance on others, and also emotional reactivity. Through repetition, through journaling, through metacognitive prompts and inner child work, new neural pathways are formed that align with self-worth, boundaries, and emotional autonomy. Crucial if you want to be a functional, happy adult. Subconscious reprogramming. Early childhood experiences form our internal operating system, the one you're not even aware is running your life. If you were raised to believe love must be earned, your subconscious still runs on that faulty script. This program helps you identify, challenge, and replace those limiting beliefs with ones that affirm your value, your true innate value, even when you're not needed, rescuing, or fixing anyone. Imagine just being you and being happy and content. Not worried about what other people think about you, not seeking their approval, like letting them not like you. Imagine. It's so freeing. Imagine focusing on what you want, on your dreams and on your goals, and letting everybody else focus on their own stuff. Imagine that. Imagine being okay that your toxic family is like, she's crazy. Imagine, like, okay, it's fine. Namaste, walk away. Imagine the freedom in that. It's incredible. Cognitive behavioral integration. Through consistent lessons and reflective exercises, students develop the ability to think about the way that they think, which is called metacognition. Most people are not thinking about the way that they think, dear one. Just sit back and listen to most people. Allowing them to respond rather than react, a key step in reclaiming personal power. Okay, just watch Housewives. Ain't no metacognition happening there. All reaction, all ego, all codependency, all narcissism, in my humble opinion. You're going to gain emotional regulation and a feeling of inner safety. Codependents often live in a constant state of anxiety, and this course teaches self-soothing and nervous system regulation techniques that help you feel safe in your body without outsourcing that safety to others. So you're going to feel safe in your own body. Imagine that. And spiritual alignment. Beyond psychology, this program incorporates spiritual principles rooted in love consciousness, helping you return to your innate divine self, where you realize that you are enough, you are whole and worthy, and independent of external validation. Ultimately, the 12-week breakthrough method offers a structured, soul-centered system for rewiring your mind, realigning your beliefs, and restoring emotional sovereignty so you can create a life based on choice rather than childhood survival. If you wish to participate on demand, that offer is 50% off the live class. I would like to now go to the Q&A. This is Helen, a graduate of the 12-week program. One of my experiences was young adult me was in an argument with my mother. Mother slaps me in the face. This time I slap her back. She is shocked. I realize what I have done and break into tears and plead for her forgiveness. Thanks to your methods and workshop, I now see how terribly unhealthy that all was. I'm very grateful that you're able to see that, Helen. And I really hope that, having access to the program, that you return to it over and over and over again, because as you return to it over and over and over again, every time you listen to a meditation, you're a different person. Every time you watch the video, you're going to hear something different, right? You're going to get a video every week. You get a new meditation every week. You get new journaling prompts every week, new homework, new class notes. There's a module recap. There's a bonus meditation. There's a glossary of terms, and there are assessments every week. This program is jam-packed. It truly is a healing system. And every time you go back, Helen, to listen to week 1 or listen to week 4, I can guarantee you're going to hear something that you didn't hear before. Keep showing up for these workshops. I'm so inspired by you. So every time you go back to the class, you're going to hear something, because every time you go back, you're a little bit different. And your psyche is able to hear something a little bit more, which is great. Thank you for that. Question is, I've done a lot of healing work. All sounds familiar, have tendency to possibly go back into codependency, though. Which book is better that you mentioned in this case? It depends on what your needs are and where you are on the healing journey. If you're looking for tools and tips, then I would recommend my book, Codependency Manifesto, or Codependent Now What? It's Not You, It's Your Programming. But if you're new to codependency, I would recommend Codependent No More and The Road Back to Me. I think that I wrote The Road Back to Me to explain how someone could become codependent. And so that's what I would do. See, if you're backsliding into codependency, that's because you haven't healed codependency at the root, because this is subconscious. It is a survival pattern. So we have to heal that survival pattern, move your body and your psyche into a state of safety so that you don't have to operate from codependency survival patterns anymore. Next question, Lisa. I'm a huge fan. I have 2 questions. Going through recovery, why do I feel regret staying away from my family? When is the new book coming out? You are an angel. You helped me a lot. Thank you. So number 1, going through the recovery, why do I feel regret? When you go through recovery, if you're speaking about your family, there are so many things that you have to face. There's this lost childhood. You have to grieve the childhood that you never had. Then you have to grieve the relationship with your mother you never had. You have to grieve the relationship with your father you never had. You have to grieve the relationships you never had with your siblings or your family. You have to grieve all of that. You do have regret. And then, because healing is accepting what is and releasing our attachment to the fantasy and the hope that it's going to be different. The healthiest people in the world are like, oh, wow, this really sucks. This really sucks. When you're codependent, you love someone who they might be. When you're codependent, you love people based on who they might become. When you're codependent, you hang on, you think that if you say it the right way, they're going to change and you're going to live happily ever after. So you're not really in reality. The healthiest people in the world say, this is the way it is. This is what I'm dealing with. And it sucks and it's painful. And also sometimes, dear one, it's like, is it regret or is it grief? Right? Like the 12-week breakthrough method, I really want to help you identify and pinpoint, what are you really feeling? You're going to get very savvy and very attuned, very sensitive to what you feel. So one of the things a tip that I can leave you with as I was learning this is I lived with a thesaurus in my car because I spent a lot of time in my car going back and forth from client to client, work back and forth. I had 3 jobs, and that thesaurus came everywhere with me. So if I looked up the word regret, I would find maybe 10 or 15 other adjectives. And it was like, wow, it really wasn't regret. It was grief. It was melancholy. It was sadness. It was an emptiness. So be more willing to explore these adjectives because the brain listens to you. Oh, I have regret. So regret is like you did something wrong. You didn't do anything wrong. You could think you're feeling regret and actually feel like grief. So I would explore that. In terms of a new book, I would like to turn Soul School into a new book. And I am speaking to someone who seems to be able to help me take Soul School and put it into a book. So when it's going to come out, I do not know, but it's definitely in the beginning stages. Next question. Hi, Lisa. Thank you so much for these enlightening webinars. Is there any tool or acronym for dealing with disabling sadness, anxiety that come from sequential breakthroughs and truths that one is not used to hearing and feeling? It really doesn't compute. I love the word just accept. It's not an acronym, but you could probably build an acronym around it. You have to accept. Like there's nothing wrong with being sad if you're really sad, because that is your truth. And that's beautiful. And that's your true self. You know, I took my granddaughter yesterday and I told her I was going to take her to a kitty cafe where they have these little cats where they give they have cupcakes and stuff, but they have like a lot of cats. It's really cute, but they closed the place down. So my granddaughter was really upset and she was sad. So there's nothing wrong with being sad. You know, that was her soul telling me, Grandma, I'm so sad. So if you're feeling sad, right, and you have anxiety comes from suppressing your anger and suppressing your sadness. So one of the things you can do is just give yourself permission to feel sad. In the 12-week breakthrough method, we give you systems and processes and journaling prompts to process the sadness so you can get it out, because the sadness remains. It's sort of like a container with it. You know, think about a Tupperware container, and sadness is in that Tupperware container locked in your body. And acknowledgement and validation opens up this lid, and then you start to feel it. And yes, your body might feel the energy of sadness, and we like to call it anxiety. It could just be truth. I'm sitting in my truth. I'm really sad right now. And your brain might say, oh, this is anxiety. Yeah, because you don't know what to do with the sadness. The brain always has anxiety when it doesn't know how to process an emotion. And those are the tools that we work on inside the 12-week class. What do you do when the abuse comes from a parent that was a psychiatrist? Wow. And a psychologist that warped therapy techniques to cause abuse? You know, this isn't the first time that I've heard that, dear one. I think this is a unique form of abuse. And in your case, what it is that you would have to extricate yourself so far from their belief systems. You know, Plato talks about the allegory of the cave, where, you know, people are locked and chained at the neck and at the feet, and they can only see the shadows that are on the wall, but they can't see the fire behind them, and the people walking in front of the fire or behind the fire are casting the shadow on the cave wall, and the prisoners think, oh, the shadows are real. No, the shadows aren't real. And the whole point of Plato's allegory of the cave is he explains how one prisoner gets loose and he makes it out of the cave, and the light is so bright, like he thinks, should I go back? But that's basically, as soon as I read your question, is that's sort of like the journey that you're on. Like you have to extricate yourself from that cave. It is not real. And then you'd have to spend enough time away out of the cave, finding your true voice, finding the truth. Because when you're dealing with somebody who understands psychological theory and they're using it against you, it messes with your head. So it's almost like they're abusing their PhD, or they're abusing their credentials, and they're trumping you because of authority. And, lots of people do that from different, like if you go to a doctor and you challenge a doctor, how dare you challenge the doctor, right? And they make you feel crazy. So you would have to, in my opinion, extricate yourself and like spend time, like just understanding what's happened to you because of this. And then validate. And then eventually you would get strong enough because you're away from the poison and you're listening to yourself enough. Then you can make a decision as to what you do next. But I would encourage you to extricate yourself from any situation that is emotionally and psychologically abusive, especially by people who are pulling rank. You're not alone, but that would be my advice. Someone just said I'm retaking the entire program. I love that. Is the on-demand what is not available versus the live? In the on-demand, it's 50% off the live version. The on-demand, you do not get a private Facebook group during the class, but although you will be invited to our graduates Facebook page once you complete it, you do not get live help. So you do have a members only forum. If you have a question, either me or one of my life coaches will respond to you within 24 or 48 hours, but you get the complete system. You just don't get the live support. You don't get the weekly live streams, and you don't get the 3 extra Zoom calls, and you don't get the 1-year access to the Break the Warrior membership site. Next question. My narcissistic mom died last year, and my narcissistic codependent dad has dementia and has chilled out. This I see. Listen, I think they should do a study. Lots of codependents get dementia. That's all I'm saying. Should I confront him? How do I heal if my abusers have died or incapable? The answer does not lie in your parents. The answer lies in you. The answer lies in validating yourself. And that's the system that we give you. So my parents never acknowledged what they did. Hello? No. Most narcissistic parents, even codependent parents, like, I did the best that I could. Your father was an alcoholic. How could you blame me? Still invalidating you. Like, you can have a healing codependent mom that can handle the hit. Like, wow, I really wasn't there for you because of my stuff. And I'm so sorry. And now, a healing codependent mom can share the load of your emotions and has found the ability to give herself the space to forgive herself and heal. Now she's got the space to help heal you. But I would not confront your father who has dementia. That's not going to help you. And if he invalidates you, he's just going to activate the abandonment wound. That's going to just make you feel crazy. It's going to make you feel worse. And you're pointing your ship in the wrong direction. The ship is home. We have to point to, how do I heal what they broke? That is the answer. Next question. Why do I keep thinking about someone that I know is not good for me? It could be limerence. When you are in a state of limerence, it doesn't have to be rooted in reality. It is an obsessive state. We oftentimes think about people who are not good for us, people who are unattainable. And it's often times tied to childhood trauma. It's a form, I think, of we're escaping. It's a form of fantasy, and it represents our deep desire to feel connected to someone. Although in a state of limerence, it's like love addiction and it's unhealthy. So that's the answer. The thing that you would do is to refuse to allow your mind to go into a state of limerence by acknowledging it and then rooting yourself in reality. He's not good for me. She's not good for me. He's not good for me. You really have to make reality a reality. I'll answer 2 more questions and then we will end this webinar. While we wait until we can do the 12-week, can we use your YouTube meditations? I've been using the morning one, and it helped. Of course, you're doing something is better than doing nothing. Absolutely. Meditation is free, and meditation, everybody, I imagine the entire world, before they put their feet on the floor, before they got a cup of coffee. Imagine if everybody had to meditate for half an hour before they got out of bed. Do you know what a wonderful, wonderful world this would be? Even children, meditate before you get out of bed. You turn the default mind off. You activate metacognition. You slow down survival responses. And now we have metacognition. Now people are thinking about the way that they think. They're thinking about how they want to feel. They're more connected to the true self. The more connected you are to the true self, the less you want to harm other people. It would be beautiful. So the answer is yes, you use the meditations. Last question. How do you heal and receive love from a man if I can't remember ever hearing I love you from my father? How to deal with this? Well, you're right. You're right. You have to learn to love yourself. And how you learn to love yourself is to first understand why you don't love yourself. So it's a process. It's not this program isn't like, oh, we're going to flip a switch. It's a process of teaching you how to accept why you feel the way you feel, why you struggle with loving yourself. Why is it so hard? When the conscious mind is brought back online and the brain does something miraculous, it can synaptically prune on its own. In other words, it's like when the brain understands or when the mind understands what it's doing wrong, and it associates enough pain with doing something wrong, it will flip and it will start doing what's right. It is an entire, it's hacking neuroscience. So you're not going to be able to, it's such a loaded question. How do you heal and receive love from a man if I can't ever remember hearing I love you from my father? You can, right? You can. And you don't need to hear I love you from your father in order to receive love from a healthy man. But you're not going to attract a healthy man until you get healthy, because the whole premise of reality is attraction. Silver or steel isn't attracted to bark of a tree. Only the bark of a tree attracts bark of a tree. Everything's attraction. If you have one peacock in a sea of flamingos, like 1,000 flamingos, and you drop a peahen from a helicopter, that peacock is going to find that peahen. Now, last I heard, peacocks don't know that they're peacocks by looking in the mirror. It's a feeling, it's an attraction thing. And so if I want love, I have to heal that hole in my heart that was caused by a man who was unable to love me, or worse, made me feel unworthy of love. Now, as I heal that, I become a magnet for love. So I don't need my father to help me heal that. And that's the beauty of the 12-week breakthrough method. So thank you so much, everybody, for being here. You can visit www.lisaaromano.com, go to resources and click the 12-week class, and you can join me. If you prefer to take this class on demand, I think we have up to 5 payment plans, and you can get the class for 50% off. So the live classes for those people who want the extra support, they want the live Facebook, they want me every week, they want the Zoom calls, and they feel like they would really benefit from the 1-year complimentary access to the Breakthrough Warrior membership site. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you so much. Nothing was your fault. And the good news is we can fix this, and we don't need our parents to do it. We have the hardware to do it ourselves. Namaste. Until next time. Bye.
Hi, I am Linda from Norway. I have just completed the 12-week breakthrough coaching program live, and I'd really like to recommend it. It's such a structured approach to healing codependency. I've known that I was a codependent for more than 20 years and tried to heal from it, from my childhood experiences and trauma. I went to a COA group and talk therapy. I've meditated my whole adult life, but I've not really been able to change the deeper unconscious programming. And I felt like my patterns were just getting worse. My health was declining. And it was after my divorce in 2019 that I discovered Lisa's videos on YouTube, and I felt like she was talking directly to me. Big aha moments, and I kind of thought I was going to heal on my own. Tried to heal on my own. I didn't. I was very stuck in lack mentality and didn't think that I could afford the course. But my health kept getting worse and worse, and I finally joined and invested in myself. And I'm glad I did. I feel so much lighter, especially the first module of the program. That was a big eye opener for me. I was able to connect so much stronger to my emotions, and to feel my feelings, to completely feel them till they're completely felt. Which was big for me because I've been programmed to kind of think my feelings. I just didn't know how. But with this new connection, I was just able to do it kind of easily, which made me able to approach old trauma in a very different way, and validate and let go of a lot of just old stuff. I feel a lot more hopeful about my future. I see that I meet new situations in a different way, that I don't self-abandon like I used to. I'm just more connected. So I'm very grateful for that, and I'm joining the masterclass. So thank you.